I think it's safe to say that the historical gaming market is booming at the moment. It's actually really kicking off, with games always coming out around this historical gaming genre, and today I bring you a look at a new game that is in Steam Greenlight and that should hopefully come out towards the end of this year. This is Lords and Peasants. Lords and Peasants is a medieval real-time strategy and city builder developed by Inverted Cat Games. It has both single and multiplayer modes with up to 16 players. Start out as a lord of a small village and develop it into a prospering city. Manage your city and rule over peasants, forge alliances and intimidate your enemies. Recruit an army and conquer the lands to create your kingdom. So this is a new game based around the sort of Banished style gameplay of building your own villages and cities, but I feel like it also has a sort of Age of Empires touch to it as you go to war against other little villages, and of course you have that multiplayer aspect. A massive feature that they are trying to push in this new game is the fact that they have individual simulation. Now, what is individual simulation, you may ask? So this is things like peasants are individually simulated with how they live their life, how they go about what they do with their surroundings, and how they go from the start to the end of their lifespan. Of course, that includes things like them being born, them aging as time goes on, and growing up. And through these times in their life, they'll be into different things, they'll have different traits. So of course a baby, not going to be doing too much, because as you probably know, babies aren't the most active of warriors or lumberjacks or smiths and all that stuff. Babies aren't really into that sort of stuff. I feel like they just got their minds elsewhere. But of course, as they grow up, they can go into different trades, do different things, make your city or village work the way you want it to. So you have to find the right amount of people that have these traits and wishes and needs that are very influential to the rest of your city. So of course, yes, character traits, needs and happiness will all be simulated individually from each individual NPC, and each individual little person in your village will all be simulated their happiness through the game as you play it. You'll also be able to move between villages and towns. Of course, you are building your own village and town here. This is going to be your mainstay, but you will be able to go to other places. Now, I'll get onto later some more about the other towns and villages and things like that that are not only controlled by other players but also NPCs, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. But not only do you have people that can grow up and become a certain profession or behave in a certain way, but this can also change over time. Now, it's not specifically stated how this changes, but I'm thinking if some certain things happen throughout your city, or maybe there's a need for a different type of person, or different type of profession, people might change their minds, go to these professions, change their behavior as the simulated life of your village goes on. So you're not constricted to one type of person. Let's say if you put down a lumberjack, that person might not stay as a lumberjack for the rest of their life. They might want to change, they might want to go and do new things, they might even want to become a dolphin trainer. I don't even think that's in the game, but that is a happy place. I love dolphins. But more importantly, we have things like the large dynamic world. Now, we know that open world games have been the mainstay for the past 5 to 10 years, but coming into strategy games, the worlds are getting bigger and bigger as you go on. You have more things to do, you have more possibilities, and it just makes for a more realistic and, I would say, enjoyable and a longer longevity of the game. Of course, medieval towns and surrounding NPC villages will be in the game. Like I said earlier, it's not just going to be your town, your city that you're building, but there'll be places dotted around that you can go and visit, maybe trade with them, and maybe even attack them. Not only will there be these friendlier or enemy towns, but you'll also have bandit camps. Maybe you can get loot from this. I'm thinking more of a Mount and Blade style where you can go and capture these bandit camps, get loot from them, maybe even slaves or recruit people from them. That might be quite interesting to see how that works within the game. So yes, bandit camps or other neutrals will be in the game. What do they mean by other neutrals? Maybe like smaller camps of people that are out there. Maybe like a lumberjack camp or something like that. But I'm not sure. Bandit camps, though, are a definite thing in there. And once again, procedurally generated maps. Now, this is a big thing for games these days. People don't like a fixed map. People like building procedurally generated maps. So it's different each time. And once again, that is a very good step that the developers have taken, since it really just adds to the longevity of said game. And it makes people want to play it for longer because it's different every time and it doesn't stay the same. But let's get into a bit more of the gameplay of the game. What about diplomacy? or battling or fighting and things like that. So something really awesome you can do, we spoke about these towns and cities that are dotted every which way around your open world earlier, but you are able to subjugate the surrounding NPC villages. These won't necessarily be controlled by the players, but by other AI. Now, I suggest you'd probably be able to do different things with them, maybe torture them, maybe trade with them, make friends with them, get them to go to war against other people with you, but also you're going to be able to subjugate them, which means you'll bring them under control. Maybe you can make them into sort of a, I would say like a client village. I don't really know what the thing is called, but where you get them to give you things and resources, or maybe you can just even take over and occupy them, use them for yourself, and then you can go on and building up a sort of a mini town empire from there, if you know what I mean. But you'll be able to dominate the world economy through trade as well. Trade is something that is very important in this time era. Of course, it is very important that you get resources from one place to another, because you can't just have a place that has everything. Nothing has everything. You don't have a place that has all the iron or the stone or maybe even the wood and things like that everywhere, and the food. That comes from very different places, because different climates and different areas will be able to spawn different things. So you need to go across all the NPC villages around this procedurally generated open world and getting bits and pieces from there, building up your trading network. But maybe it did mention before that there will be bandits in this. And what I'm thinking is, what would be quite interesting if you could have bandits attack these trade routes, which means you have to get troops and things to defend your trade routes, because if you don't, that's going to really struggle on your economy. So it all really links together. You need to make sure you're balancing your trading, but also balancing your recruiting of soldiers, because if you don't get enough soldiers, then obviously you won't be able to take over more towns. If you don't take over more towns, you won't get more resources, but also you won't be able to trade with more people. And if you don't get enough soldiers, then you won't be able to protect these trade routes. And if these trade routes get attacked, that means that they are practically useless and you are losing a lot of resources and money. So you're going to have to protect them and make sure that they are all working perfectly. But what about the multiplayer? That was more on the single player. What about the multiplayer? Multiplayer is something that really increases the longevity of a game, and it makes people want to stay with it and have fun with their friends. I love multiplayer games. As you can probably tell by this channel, most of the games that I play when I'm doing a live commentary are multiplayer games. So how many people can get in a game? Well, at the moment we're saying up to 16 players, which I think for this type of game is way more than I thought there would have been. I would have thought for multiplayer maybe like 8 max, but 16 seems like a massive overshoot. Maybe this is going to work really well because you're going to have people that are working together. There's more options for people to work with or go to war with, and maybe have team battles, or maybe it could work in the disadvantage of the game developers, as it might get a little bit overcrowded. That only time can tell, and how well they can program their servers so they don't lag at all. Whether it's going to be a dedicated server or it's going to be a client-side hosted server, that's going to change how well these multiplayer servers are going to run. But of course, there's also the possibility to play over LAN and internet and that sort of stuff, the typical stuff that you're going to find in a multiplayer game. But one thing I find a problem with these strategy games and multiplayer is they can take quite a long time, and a lot of people, if someone leaves, then it kind of ruins the whole game. But they've added a mechanic in where you can hot join games, or you can let AI continue playing after you leave a game. So maybe if you've got to go and do something, you can't finish the rest of the game and you leave, you're not just ending the game for all of these people and the AI is going to take over your spot. They're going to do your stuff. That is a little bit risky, because obviously AI has to be programmed to work as a player would work, and as we know from a lot of games, that doesn't normally end too well. Things like Age of Empires, that AI is either really terrible or extremely overpowered, and they'll start creating nukes and things while you're still hitting a tree with a club. Not that you can get nukes in Age of Empires, but you know what I mean. But yes, AI is something that has to be careful when you're programming it to get it work really well, especially in a strategy game. And finally, the most important part that everyone loves and that just increases the longevity of a game. I've said that word way too many times in this video, but it increases the longevity of a game by years, literally years sometimes, and can boost the profits, because everyone loves this in a game. And this is modding. Here you can customize the game mechanics such as production chains, resources, and names games. You can include custom models and textures, and of course it's in C# language. I don't know too much about modding and coding and things like that, but I'm sure that will mean a lot to quite a lot of people. But I think C# is a very universal coding language, which lets people mod very easily in games. But this addition of the modding and how much they're letting players mod is really good, because it means we'll be able to get some overhaul mods. Yes, it is set in a sort of medieval Banished type era, but maybe it's going to move on to something like you can get an overhaul of Lord of the Rings, or maybe even pushing a Star Wars overhaul would be quite interesting, or a Warhammer overhaul. These fantasy type things are really awesome, and I love it when people come into games and put them in, because it just increases the longevity of a game and makes people want to play it so much more. I can't wait to see what people can get up to with modding. I suspect there's probably going to be some map making and things, since we do see some videos of very flat maps with soldiers fighting, which means that these flat maps might be able to be molded into map making and things like that, so it's not all going to be the same. But since it's procedurally generated, maybe you're not going to need that. You probably won't need that sort of thing. But graphics wise, it's not too strong. Yes, it is very early access. There's no actual game that you can play at the moment. This is all developer stuff. Graphics wise, it's not the prettiest looking game in the world, but graphics isn't everything. And from what we've heard from the gameplay, it looks like it's going to be a very strong contender to the historical strategy market. Animations look decent, but I would say the main attraction for this game is the size and scale of it, and the amount of things you can do, because not only do you have this Banished style building a city or village, something I always wanted with that game is the possibility to go away, find other places, build troops, capture places. This Age of Empires feel. It has a city building from Banished, but the fighting from Age of Empires, and I think that's going to be absolutely awesome if they can get that mix right. But anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to hear more about it, make sure you go to the description. There'll be links to everything. Once again, I am not sponsored by any of these companies. They have not even talked to me in the past. I just really like spotlighting these, and you guys really love watching them apparently, so I'm going to do more. But until then guys, I will see you in the next one.